Welcome to part 2 of our architectural tutorial series. My name is Zoltan, and today we are going to continue with our work what we have left off before. Namely, we are going to create an additional floor to our building. We are going to see how to copy elements from one floor to the other, how to add additional items to it, doors and windows, and how to get those tiny details, namely railings, additional slab elements, balconies. If you want to know more about the tutorial content that I'm using right now, you can check out the description where you can find the project files and PDF descriptions. So let's get going. Now that the ground floor is done, it's time to create the first floor. And before we do that, let's talk about how ARCHLine handles the floor structure. By highlighting the 2D, let's open up the floor manager over here at the bottom. And here I can see that now I'm currently on the ground floor. I know that because it's written over here. And there are 2 floors above me and 1 basement level below me. Now this is a structure that the software creates for you automatically, but of course you can always create and subtract the levels from this structure. Now let's close this and see how we can copy elements from the ground floor to the first floor, because the building is actually pretty similar in terms of how the floors look like, with some minor differences. So my task is now to get this whole content and copy it upwards. Now if I want to select the whole drawing, I can do it with the rectangle. And this would show you in the 2D and 3D what are the things which are selected. If you want to add to this selection, then you can just hit the Control key and click on the element that you want to add to the selection. And if you want to subtract from this selection, just hit Control again and click on the element that you don't want. Now, you can either copy elements from this property grid over here, so you can copy elements from the ground floor 1 floor up, but instead of this method, we are going to use the floor manager that we already are familiar with and click on this copy objects to other floor. Now, when I hit this dialog, I see that I have my floors here, but the ground floor is missing. Of course, because this is where we are copying from, so that's why it's not on the list. So let's just select the floor to which I want to copy my content, hit OK, and the software does the rest. Now, the 2 floors are identical, but it's important to know how to navigate between the floors. There are more than one ways to do it. One way I like to do it is with this page up and this up and down keys. If I hit down, I see that now the ground floor is selected, and I see also the DWG that I imported. If I go up again, I only see the first floor. Also, you can do the same action with the page up and page down keys. We now have an exact carbon copy of the ground floor on my first floor, but there are some changes, some differences that I have to implement. Let's put the 2D into focus by double-clicking on the mouse wheel, and let's get rid of the elements that I don't need. First of all, I don't need the staircase, so I just need to select it and hit delete to get rid of it. So by selecting elements and hitting delete, you can just get rid of them. If you want to highlight more than one element, then you can just use the rectangle, and here we go. This way you can get rid of all the elements that you actually don't need. Another modification that I have to implement is with the wall layers. Let's go into the 3D to investigate this a bit further. So if I zoom in, I see that this wall over here has an insulation layer, which looked very good on the ground floor, but here on the first floor, I see that there's a gap. It's not covering the slab. So I need to get this wall layer to extend downwards and give a nice covering to this gap over here. How do I do that? I select the wall I want to work with, and I hit the pencil icon, and I go back to the compound wall settings that I edited before. And here I see the 2 layers that I edited. I have a thermal insulation and a brick layer. And here's the trick. For every single layer in the software for walls, you can define where they start from and where they go to. So you can define an exact value. You can say that it starts from 0 and goes all the way up to 2700 millimeters, for example. And you can give some offsets to it. So what I need is I want the external insulation layer to start a little bit lower than the core layer. I go to base offset, and I hit edit. And here I have several ways to decide where the layer starts from. So I want to extend it downwards, and I do that by changing where it starts from. So now the layer is starting from the top of structure, which is the 0 level, but I want it to start from the bottom of structure, which would coincide with the lower point of the slab. So let's just click on bottom of structure, hit OK again, and OK again. And this way, this layer now nicely covers my slab. Question is, How do I copy the property, this kind of change, to all the other walls on my first floor? I go back to the 2D, I highlight the wall which is already alright, and I right click on it, and I say that I want to copy its properties. Don't forget that the same action you can reach from over here as well. Now I'm selecting all the properties, and then I'm just going to click on the walls where I want this property to be taking effect. And this way, if I select all the walls, then the externalmost layer, which is now an insulation layer over here, is going to go all the way to the bottom. Now, if you want this line to be disappearing, then you can just hit the 3D hammer, which would actually merge the surfaces. Let's talk about staircases a bit more. You can see on the 3D and also in the 2D that there's no gap above the staircase. So if I want to walk from the ground floor to the first floor, there will be no way to cross it. So how do we make that happen? Let's make sure you're on the ground floor and select the staircase and go to the context menu over here. This would allow you to cut the slabs above the stair. If you click on this option, then this slab would be cut automatically. Let's select the 3D and zoom in to see it a bit more. Now this is an automatic cut. How does it happen? The software actually investigates which are the steps of the staircase when a predefined value of 2100 millimeter is not met. And whenever it bumps into that kind of constraint, it's going to just cut the slab this way. But if I zoom in a bit further, I see that there's one thing in this cut which I don't really like. I need to adjust it. So I select the 2D, go one floor up, select the contour of the slab, click on it, hit offset, and move it back to make it neatly lining up. And by clicking on this node, I can get rid of this node as well. Now, this kind of editing you can do in the 2D and also in the 3D. So if I click on this, you can see that you have the same offset actions. Now, the cut is done, but there's no staircase symbol. So how do we amend that? Now, one easy way to do it is to go back to the ground floor, select the staircase, and copy it one floor up, just like we did it before. The problem is that if I do this, I have an extra 3D element which I don't need. And also the 2D needs to be adjusted. So how do we do that? First of all, let's select the staircase and go back to its properties. If I go to support, I can first of all disable the 3D creation, and this would get rid of the 3D body. And also there's another thing I like to set up, and that is the cutting. If you remember on the ground floor, I set up that the staircase should cut the floors below it. I mean, cut the walls below it. But if I have a staircase over on the first floor, which I don't see, but it still cuts elements, I might get into some geometrical issues. So I need to disable cutting over here. I say that there should be no cutting. And also one other thing I need to set up, I need to say that there should be no section line over here. Here you go. So now I just got rid of the 3D body. And the last thing I need to do, I need to actually edit the 2D element, because I still have a 2D over here, but that's not good enough for me because there should be no parts of the staircase symbol over here. So how do I do that? I go to the context menu and I say edit stair symbol components. And if I do that, the software gets into this kind of editing mode where everything else is isolated. The only thing I have access to is actually the staircase's 2D symbols. So I can now select elements and get rid of them. So I can just click on the elements and just delete them. It's easier to highlight the things that you don't need, and then you can just gradually clean this model up. There's a couple of things I don't need over here. So let's just extend this line back where it needs to go. If I want to extend it, then I can just hit the shift key and make sure it aligns with that. And also there's a couple of lines I need to delete. And when I deem this to be ready, when I think it's done, I actually go back to this context menu and I close the group. And if I do that, I end up with a nice clean 2D representation of my staircase. Let's create the partition walls. Now I go to building and wall menu, and here I can find the wall style I want to work with. This time I'm working with a 10 centimeter or 100 millimeter thick partition wall. I want to have several walls over here. Some of them are going to be created graphically, and some of them are going to be created based on typed in numerical values. So let's start with this wall over here on the corner. Let's zoom in, click on the corner point, where I want to start the wall from. If I click and I drag the mouse, I see that there's going to be one dashed green line, which is the reference line, and the wall is going to be put either on the right or left hand side or the middle in relation to it. If you want to flip that, in this case we have to, you can click on this tab over here, and that flips the wall. Again, if I want to flip it back, I can do that like this. Let's put it to the left, and I want to go up north. Now the thing is that if I have points close to my drawing, then I might snap to it, but this time I don't want to snap to this corner point. Instead, I'm just hovering my mouse over here until these green dashed lines, helping lines appear, and then I can just bump into this line over here. You see that the wall connection is created automatically, and that the 2D and 3D is built up automatically as well. Next task, I want to create the wall over here. So again, I go back to wall, and I'm just going to click on the point where the wall starts from. Again, position is not good, so I need to flip it either with this button, or I can just hit the F5 key, and that would actually flip the wall for me. So I need to move this wall up north, and I actually want the wall to be going into this distance. So I want it to align with this point over here, the structural layer. So I'm just hovering the mouse until the green line appears, and I can just snap it over there. And without terminating the tool, I'm just going to keep on moving until I create this partition wall as well. Now, with right click or with escape, you can terminate the action. And if you just right click again, you can pull up the last command that you did. Now, let's proceed with creating the walls. Next one comes here. There's a bunch of walls over here, and this time we are going to work based on numerical values. So the thing what I know is that there should be a wall here, which is actually 1.66 meters or 1,660 millimeters from this corner. How do we create that? Now, there's a tool over here, and that's called the references. So if I click on that one, the software allows me to pick one point, and then I can put elements, lines, doors, windows, you name it, in relation to that point. So again, if I click on this reference point submitting tool, then you can just click on the corner, and if I drag the mouse, you see that now the values, what I can write in, are done in relation to that corner point. So now I'm typing in 1,660, and now I can create my wall in relation to that point. I know that it goes downwards to 1,600, and then it goes east actually with a value of 2,700, and then it goes again up north. And this way you can create like even symmetrical forms. So again, click on the point where you want to draw from, type in the value where you want to be when you start drawing, and then you just create the element. Now, next thing that I have to create, there should be one wall over here, and I know that it's from a distance of 4,620 millimeters from this corner. So again, I do the same thing. While in the wall drawing tool, I click on the reference point, click here, move the mouse downwards, and type in the value of 4,620. Hitting enter, and then I can just click the wall over here. There you go. And I think the last wall that I have to create is actually somewhere here in the middle. Now, how do we actually achieve something like a mid snap? So I go back to wall, and this time I need to be able to snap to the midpoint of this wall. And here's the trick: instead of drawing in relation to the left or right side of the reference line, I'm clicking on centered, and then I can be on the dead center of this element over here. So I click there, and presto, the partition walls are created. It's time to add the doors. Before I do that, let's amend something on the floor plan. You see that when I copied the ground floor, I copied the entrance door as well. I select it and I hit delete to get rid of it. Now, onto doors. When I want to predefine them, I go to building, properties, opening, and select the door. And now I see this glass sliding door. This was the last thing I worked with on the ground floor, and the software remembered that and offers me this model for further use. But I want to change this, so I need to go to the name of the element, which opens up the door library. I go to the main library, and I'm just going to type in the door type I want to work with, which in this case should be a flush door. With OK, I accept it. Size is okay, width height is good, I'm not changing that, but distance from wall line has to be decreased to 0. Materials are good. Let's hit OK. How do I position the doors? Now, let's just zoom out of the 3D so you can see what's going on. I go to Building, Door, and Placing Door. And this tool only works if you are hovering over a wall. If you are not, then you're given this exclamation mark. But if you move your, let's just select the 2D first. If you move your mouse over any of the wall parts, then the software would show you that this is where the door would be created. Now, how do I position that? I need to move the mouse cursor where I want the door. I know that it's snapped to the corner. Click once. And with the next click, with the second click, I can just define where the door is opening to. Here you go. Now the tool is still open, so you can just keep on clicking and clicking to create the doors. Here comes the next one. Just click once and click twice to give an opening direction. Now let's proceed with the other doors in the partition wall. Here comes another one. Let's just use my cheat sheet. Here we go. So here's one. It opens to the left, and here's another one. It opens to the right. Now this is very fine and it's all good. But what happens if you know exactly the distance where the door is from another object or from a wall corner? This is what we investigate next. So let's hover to this wall section and see that when I position the door, I see one green reference dot. Now this dot I can relocate from the right side to the left side and to the middle. And I can do that with this tool over here. I say next reference point, and now the software puts the reference line to the middle of the door. I click again, and now it puts to the left side of the door. Let's click once more to have the reference line, reference dot on the right hand side. And now I know for a fact that this door is exactly 800 millimeters from the right. Now on the screen it says 1802. So what do? I just simply type in the value of 800 millimeters and hit enter. And when I do that, the door is snapped to that value where I want it to be. And with the last click, I can just define that it opens to the inside. There you go. Now there's one last door over here, and that comes to this wall corner and opens to the inside. And with this, the doors are now created. Having created the doors, now it's time to move on to the windows. Most of the windows on my first floor are copied from the ground floor, but there are some special cases which I need to create now. I know that there is a window over here which is the same type as this one but with different sizes. So what do? I click on the existing window, click on the corner node, and I move a copy. And I know that this window should be on the dead center of this wall, so I'm just going to hit next reference point, and this way I can just snap the window to the middle of the wall. And by clicking, I just positioned it. But the sizes are different, so let's just select the window and go on to the properties. And I need to resize this window. First of all, the width should be only 700 millimeters. Let's type that in. Let's hit redraw. And the height is 1200 millimeters. And the sill height is also something I need to decrease. So I'm just going to add the sill height. Oh, sorry, I need to increase it because now it's 0. Sill height should be 900 millimeters. I can hit again redraw, and once I did that, the window is now changed to another smaller type. Now the thing is that I have another copy of this window over here on the center of this wall. How do I create that? I click on an existing copy, and I say that I want to create similar, and move my mouse cursor over the wall where I want to create this. And now again, I'm going to hit it into the dead center. So now I have all the doors and windows created for this model. Let's create a balcony over here. Before I draw anything, let's define the properties of this slab. So I go to Properties, Structure, Slab. And then I'm going to change the material to bright white. I don't have to worry about the sides or the bottom of the slab because these values are now chained together. So if I change something here, the changes will be implemented on the other side as well. The other values are not changing, but I'm going to zoom in on this part and create the slab. So I go to Slab, Slab in sketch mode, and I'm going to find the part when I'm starting from, drag the mouse, type in 1500, then go up north, it's going to be 3500, and I go back to the wall, like so. Hit enter, and the slab, the balcony, is created. Let's now create a flat roof over here. The trick would be that this is going to be a 2-layered slab. So how do we go about that? First, we go to building and properties and predefine the values, because we are looking for a slab which has a material of concrete 3, and it should have a base offset from the floor as -300, and the total thickness should be a -100. Once we have that accepted, we have to create the object. So we go to slab in sketch mode and we create one slab which goes 1850 millimeters down, and then it goes to the left. But before, so let's talk about how do we create something which is exactly at the place where it needs to be. You have two choices. You either hit the shift key and move your mouse cursor to the point where you want to snap to, or you can just move the mouse cursor there right away, wait until these green lines appear, and then here we go. Let's hit enter, and now this part is created. The second piece of slab would go just above it and extends 100 millimeters to the sides and to the front. So how do we create that? We do the same thing, building, properties, structure, and we go to slab. And this time the base offset from the floor would be -200. Thickness is fine as it is. Material would be changed to bright white. Here we go. Let's hit OK. And now, one trick I would like to do, I'm just going to resketch what I already have. So I'm going to click slab in sketch mode, and drag over the part of the drawing that you already have at hand and hit enter. And now you ended up with a 2-layer slab. You could have done this in one step, but what you need is that piece of slab should be extended outwards to 100 millimeters. How do you do that? Now, first of all, you select the slab that you want to work with. Now, here's an interesting thing. You selected the slab, but the software is not really sure which slab you want, so it gives you a choice, like a toggle between the two elements which are overlapping each other. So by clicking back and forth, you can find the tool, the actual slab that you want to work with, and now we have the top one selected that I actually want to extend. So I'm just clicking on the sides, and I'm going to offset most of the sides to 100 millimeters. Like so, and also to the front. Notice that you could just offset all and then offset the parts that you don't need. It's either way, whichever you prefer. Now, once you have this, the other thing we want to do is that I want this part to be extruded over there. So I just click on the side and insert the node, click where the node should be, and then the remaining part could be offset any way you want. Let's repeat the same step on the other side. Hit the side, insert node, hit the side again, offset back to its place. And this way you can create a nice decorational flat roof in front of your building. Now that we have a balcony, it's time to create a railing over here. So for this we have a dedicated tool under the building railing tool, and if you select this, then you have quite a few sets of different predefined railing styles. You can of course create your own, but we are going to work now with a predefined one, which should be the metal railing with glass left. And the way it works is that we just have to zoom on in the part where we want to create the railing and just track the contour of the slab. So click, 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 and hit enter. Enter again. And now the railing is created. Now, because of the predefined values, your railing might not necessarily be at the right position, but I'm going to show you how to amend that. So there are ways, of course, if you select something, to elevate it from the properties, so you can here define the base offset from the floor. But there's another way to do it, and this is something that you should use when you are working with something which is a 3D object, because you can, in fact, modify things and transform things in the 3D. So if you have something selected, in this case it's this railing, you have 3 nodes, and if you click on these nodes, you are able to physically move the elements upwards, downwards, or in any direction. So if you want to move or shift this railing upwards with a certain value, you just have to click on that node and move it upwards and type in the value. I know for a fact it should be 800 millimeters, and if I click that, I hit that, then the railing would be pushed to the actual position. By hitting escape, you terminate the selection, and now you can see the railing. I'm not particularly fond of this material. I want to change it to something else. Here's how you do it. You go to the design center up here and you look for something, maybe a blue glass material would be fine. So I found the one that I'm looking for. And there's many ways to apply materials to objects, but the most straightforward one is always to just hold on to it and drag it onto the surface. So if I let it go now, The software asks me how I want to apply this material, as a painting, tiling, or, and this is very important, if I want to replace this material with another on all the similar instances, or if I just want to replace one material with another one on this particular object only. And this is what I want to use. So let's just hit OK, click on it, and now the object is recolored the way I want it to be. We are going to now create another kind of railing. That's going to be on the ground floor next to the staircase. The problem is that no matter how far I'm zooming in, I'm not able to go inside the building. This is natural because this view is now an axonometric one. So in order to be able to jump inside our building, we have to go into a perspective view. You can do that by clicking on this eye icon, and if I click that, I see that now I'm on the outside and I have a couple of nodes and a couple of lines over here. Let's understand what they mean. So first of all, I have a blue dot. This is where I am. So if I click on that and I move that, I see that my point where I'm looking from is changing. This kind of purplish thing is what I'm looking at. And by clicking on the red dot, I can actually move where I am. So this way you can just quickly move ourselves inside. Now, if I want to store this view for later use, then I can just hit this plus button and name this view as living room 01. And I'm going to create another view as well, which would be something like this. So this time I will be looking from this point over there. And this should be called living room number 2. 02. Here we go. So now I have two perspective views selected and stored. And if I click back and forth, I see these views being toggled. Here's another thing. If I hit OK, I can use the page up and page down keys to quickly jump back and forth between the views. But this was just actually a side note to show you how to jump inside, because what we really want to do is to have a railing created by columns over here. So every single step will have one column assigned to it. Luckily on the 2D, let me just jump into 2D, I see that there's a couple of dots over here, so I know where to position the columns. Only question is, how do we create them? So we jump to building column, and we have to define its properties. So we open up this. These are the default values. First of all, we have to change the sizes. I know for a fact that the width of this column should be 50 millimeters and the height should be 100 millimeters. And that gives you a cross-sectional profile based on which a column would be created. Now the material should be our old friend wood Pado. If you don't know how to find it, just type it up there, but I can find it. So I change the solid material and I'm changing the surface material as well. And also I need to disable the slab roof cutting, because if I have that enabled, then the slab above it would cut the top, and I don't want that because I want these columns to go all the way up until they hit the roof. Now the height should be 5100, and the base offset from the floor should be, and I'm just going to use some values from here, should be 675. All right, so let's hit OK. And now all I have to do, I'm going to place one copy of this column, and then I'm just going to copy it as many times as I want. One side note, if I jump back into the 3D and I want to turn the perspective, I just right click and move the mouse button. That's just a side note for you. So let's go back to 2D and hit column. And now I'm just going to place one column over here. And the column is created. Now, that's fine, I have one copy, but how do I get a couple of more? I think I have 12 more copies over here. There's a very neat tool for that. Let's just select the column and go to the moving marker. And here I have a tool which is called multiply. If I click that, the software asks me, okay, how many copies do you want of this object? Because what is going to happen is I'm going to move a copy and multiply it as many times as I want. I need 12 copies. And now the software asks me, okay, where do you want to do the first copy from? What is the reference point? This should be the bottom left corner of this column. And once I clicked, I'm going to move the mouse, and you see that there are going to be multiple copies of this column created. So all I have to do, I just have to go all the way up to the top and click on the last column. And here we go. This way you just created a very customized, sort of like a railing system. So if I go back and forth with the page up and page down keys, I see the result of my work. We talked about materials before, but one thing we haven't learned is how to actually pick up one material from one object and paste it onto another one. This is what we are looking at next. So while being in perspective, I'm just going to zoom back with the mouse wheel, and let's head outside. So I see that I have a ramp which has a different material than the pavement next to my building. So I need to pick up this material and paste it onto my ramp. So what I do, I select the sample where I want to get the material from and right click. And I'm going to hit find material, and this would tell me that this is concrete number 3. So what I do now, now that the material is selected, I'm just going to grab onto it and drag it onto the surface, and I'm going to replace one material with another on this object. And here we go. And this concludes chapter 2 of our architectural tutorial series. I hope you like this content. Our building comes very nicely along. So next time in part 3, we are going to look at creating a roof. It's going to be a pretty complicated shape, so we are going to look at roof inclination, roof planes, and even roof layers to some bit. And we also look at how to add additional elements to your drawing, namely solar panels. We also look at rain gutters and some columns on the outside to support our flat roof. So if you like this video up until to this point, I hope you did, then you can give us a thumbs up, and if you don't want to miss any of our other shows, you can subscribe to the channel. So let's meet each other again in part 3.